Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of League Zero. It's been a little while since we've been on this channel, and some pretty good news to share with you all, as you see from the stream title. We have the announcement finally for the December tournaments that we've been talking about for quite some time. And where else to start, I guess, than from the very beginning, everything needs a name. And as most of you have probably noticed by now, in the top left corner of the screen, we have a name right there. Zero to Hero Legacy. Zero to Hero in particular is the name the staff team has decided to use for any tournaments moving forward that are for pre-made teams as opposed to the draft season. This is just a nice little way to separate the two between a season and then number for the stereotypical draft seasons. That's kind of our bread and butter, and then Zero to Hero is going to be more for like the one-off tournaments. Legacy in this case is just a subtitle, and it's in reference to the gimmick for this particular tournament, which we will get to later on. But for now, that is the title of this tournament. Unfortunately, we couldn't get like a fancy graphic or whatever, but maybe next time, right? We can only do so much with so little time. So as you can see on the screen, we're going to have notes off to the left-hand side of the screen to give a brief overview, and then we'll have various other staff members and advisors come in to talk about their individual parts, right? So this tournament, of course, is going to be happening December 17th through the 19th. That's Friday through Sunday. Specific times are going to be determined once signups are closed, which I believe signups are going to be closing around December 13th. It's a Monday at 5 p.m. EST. So you have a little bit over a week to get those signups in, right? They're not open quite yet, but the signups will be happening shortly after this stream concludes. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll have more information about what you need for those signups. In terms of specific times for the games, though, I can guarantee you that we'll have at least one time slot all 3 of the days at 8 p.m. EST, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then probably expect sometimes 6 p.m. EST for Sunday and Saturday as well. We're going to try and not have any games earlier than 8 p.m. EST on the Friday, and also no later than 8 p.m. EST on the Sunday, just because people have work and school and whatnot, so we're going to try and be respectful of that like we usually are with the draft league season, so nothing too crazy there. However, the games might move a little bit earlier into Saturday and Sunday as well. So yeah, registration, like I said, closes Monday the 13th. Player registration will be open as well, and that will stay open throughout the entire tournament because that form is also going to be used for emergency ringers, which we'll get to later on in this presentation. As well as an important note, we are not limiting the number of teams we are accepting. We're just going to kind of create any extra divisions if we have enough teams to have multiple divisions based on SR or whatnot. Multiple brackets possibly within an SR range if we have a bunch of teams. But we really don't want to turn any teams away. Instead, at the very worst, we're just going to have like a bye round in the bracket, right? So we feel like that's a better conclusion to allow for this community tournament with no prize pool. It's just for fun, right? So it doesn't feel right to turn people away. So anyways, for the first of the specific parts of this tournament, I'm going to be handing it off to one of our rule keepers, Abraxas, to talk about the tournament structure.
Hello. My name is Abraxas. Everyone already knows who I am. I don't think I need an introduction because I am awesome. But I will be talking about the season structure for this upcoming tournament. So the majority of the info structure for the pre-made will be more outlined in the rulebook, and that will more than likely release during the signups. And we can better determine everything for everyone to know about the season structure once we have like team registrations. So that sort of involves if we're going to have SR divisions or if we're going to have no SR divisions. So that sort of just helps us figure out what exactly we want to do for games and what we want to do for teams. So I bet the biggest question everyone's asking is how we're going to determine SRs. And it's going to be determined from every person on your roster. But there's sort of a little catch to prevent like a bunch of GMs from just stomping. And it's that if you are below 1,000 SR of your highest player, you will not count towards your team. So let's say, for example, you are top 500 and you have 3 top 500 buddies who want to play with 3 plat buddies. Well, your plat buddies, they don't count towards your SR average. It's just to keep it balanced, just to make sure GM players don't roll through the lower divisions, assuming there are some. which, I hope there will be. Come sign up, come have fun. We're trying to bring back the old culture of League Zero. We're trying to allow you guys to have fun again. Like, no more 1984 guys, no more Big Brothers watching, Like, I'm here to make sure you guys have fun. So just come out and have fun. That's all I can ask. But I don't think there's anything else that I need to say. So I'm just going to pass it on to, Corbs, while he talks about team structure. So, yeah.
Okay, first of all, you held me hostage on... All right, never mind. All right, okay, so, team structure. Let's go over it. Number one, roster will be in between 6 to 12 players. As long as you're within that limit, y'all are fine. Obviously, you can't have 5 players because there aren't 5 roles quite yet. And you can't have, way too many players because, things. All right, and then also 25% of the roster must be a League Zero veterans. For those of y'all that can't do math, just like me, that is going to be one League Zero veteran if you have 6 players, 2 if it's in between 7 and 11, and 3 if it's at 12. And then also, another very important thing is that managers are required, but captains are not. Managers don't necessarily need to play, but you can obviously play if you'd like. And then also, you'll need to fill out in terms of filling out the form, you'll need to fill out the player form, registration form separately. And then there's going to be up to 3 team staff positions allowed per team, so no team can sign 18 mental health coaches, cough flushed, in order to help really, in order to get coaches, the general thing. And then the good news is that none of your players really have to fill out the team registration form. Only the manager does. So thank goodness y'all don't have to. Thank goodness we don't have to go through so many forms. Which, trust me, it's not fun. Anyways, let's go back to the big man himself, Acronator.
All right, so player registration, what the vast majority of you are going to have to deal with for this. The form itself is going to be very similar to what we've had for the sign up for the draft seasons, right? Where you're going to be giving us your SR. We are also carrying over the minimum required comp games from the previous and current seasons combined and whatnot. That has worked pretty well in the past couple of seasons of the draft league to make sure that people are being placed in the right SR in this case so that they can factor in appropriately to their team's SR. As Abraxas said earlier, anyone can play with their friends regardless of SR, but it will factor into where your team's average is supposed to be. So anyway, starting from the very top of what you see on the stream graphic, you're going to have to play at least 25 games of comp between the current and previous comp seasons. Right, that's pretty standard. That's been the case for seasons 3 and 4 of League Zero itself, and at least 10 of those comp games need to be happening in the current season. That means, however, if you have not placed in the previous season and you only have, say, 15 games in the current season, you need to grind out 10 more comp games. That's basic math and whatnot. Public profiles, I know this has always technically been a rule, but we're going to try to enforce it a little bit more this time around. From the moment you fill out the player registration form up until the end of the tournament, either for your team or say you go to the grand finals, so the very end of the tournament, you should have your profile on public if you are playing. Team staff and managers, we don't really care, right? But people who are playing the tournament, you really need to have public profiles. That's just for competitive integrity, making sure that staff can do their job and checking players as necessary, right? If someone lied, we need to know that. And we do withhold the right to suspend someone from playing until they give us that information if absolutely necessary. But again, this isn't 1984. We're not doing that stuff again. So we're going to try and be as amicable as possible, right? So player SR for the form itself, the registration form, because we get this question all the time. I guarantee we're still going to get it regardless of saying it in the sign-up form and right here. But the specific SR numbers we want are from your highest role of your highest placing account from the past 2 seasons. So say you're normally a low diamond tank player, but previously you placed, I don't know, say mid-masters in support last season of comp, right? We want your support SR from that alternate account. Now, you can appeal if necessary. We do have an appeal form ready in case you say that alt account that I just gave the example for, you only have 2 hours played on, right? but then your main account you have like over 50 hours, and you think that would be a better representation of your SR for the team calculation, you can fill out the appeal form and then make your case known to staff, and we'll look through it and act accordingly based on the context given. And the form you will be required to give as much context as humanly possible so that we can get the full picture, right? We want to be as fair as possible, but we also want to make sure that people aren't just trying to smurf. Granted, the possibility of smurfing is a little bit less now compared to like a draft season, but it still has the potential of ruining the fun for everyone else who isn't on that team. So anyways, we're going to be sticking with me as we go into the next section, which is the success cap. Nothing really has changed here except for one minor thing, which we'll get to in a moment, but there is no SR cap in League Zero. You can be a 4,900 player as long as you have not hit certain milestones in the path to pro, in the semi-pro scene, right? You're welcome to play, right? Top 8 open division players will be limited to just 1 per team. That's same as always. That's always been the case. As well as if you have reached Contenders Trials or above, meaning Contenders Trials, Contenders, or Overwatch League. Granted, we haven't had a player hit that level quite yet. Maybe someday. But if you have a player that has hit those levels, they are unfortunately ineligible to play. Except for the Legacy part of this tournament's title. Legacy is in reference to League Zero veterans. Obviously, that requirement is there for the rosters, but also we wanted to do something for the good old-fashioned League Zero veterans who have gone on to higher levels of success within the path to pro. So if you are a League Zero veteran that has hit Contenders Trials or Contenders, you are eligible to compete in this tournament, but to keep it fair, we're limiting it to just 1 per team. Right, so we can't have the entirety of Flush come back, as funny as it would be, and we almost considered it, but it would just be a stomp, right? Or say San Francisco Glock. You can't have Joshua and Pascal. You'd have to choose between one of those 2 players to be on San Francisco Glock's rebuild in that example, right? So we hope this lets those veterans who have shown a lot of interest in participating in the past, right? Think back to Season 4, we had Zira and Clear, as well as Pascal and Joshua, I think, coaching and managing and whatnot. Now they can actually play, but they're going to have to be a little bit more creative with how they fit onto rosters, because only one of them can be on a roster at any point in time. And now, I'm going to hand it off to a former staff member, now advisor, Des, to talk a little bit about more miscellaneous but still important information.
All right, I guess how we should probably start is with the ringer policy. So in regards to ringers, ringers may not have a higher average SR than the calculated average SR of the person they're filling in for. They also will be required to fill out the player registration form and be approved by a division coordinator. In regards to the pause rules, calls for pauses should not happen mid-fight. Automatic pauses due to disconnects cannot apply due to this rule above, as pretty obviously you can only call for pause. Each team has 5 minutes of pause time per map. Moving on then to score reporting, there will be a dedicated channel in the management section for team representatives to report scores for, and then the part everyone is waiting for, obviously, is stats. Rockcrafts has been generous enough to let us utilize his system to collect stats. The only stipulation behind this is that team management will be responsible for compiling the files necessary to display the stats from the matches they host. We'll have more information on this shortly when it eventually comes out. Besides all of that, though, I think I'll now hand it off to Acri to cover the participants agreement.
All right, so originally Navina was supposed to do this, but he got caught up at work. But he did make me promise to say this one, quote, "Don't be a bitch." It's basically what this boils down to, but I will go over the basics of it, right? We've had the participants agreement, I think, since Season 2, if not Season 3. I don't know, I didn't handle the rulebooks back then, but either way, we've taken pretty much the essence of it and compiled it down to just 4 simple points, so you don't have to read through this giant wall of text. Actually, same thing with the rulebook in general. It's very much condensed from what it is in the past, and that'll all be public shortly after the stream goes live. But the points are basically you have read and accept the rules of League Zero. You will abide by all Blizzard terms of service. That's pretty standard. If you have if your account is suspended, you can't compete, you can't participate, etc. A somewhat newer part, or at least a newly worded part, is that you understand that your actions will reflect onto League Zero and will act appropriately as a member of this community. I think we had tried to touch on this in previous seasons, particularly season 4, by trying to lessen the impacts that the community could have, right, in creating like a bad image. But I think we kind of took it a bit too far back then. Nowadays, it's just like, look, don't be a dick. Don't be a little bitch, as Navino would say. Just be chill, right? So if you go crazy in a scrim and like get yourselves blacklisted, first off, I would know because I'm in a few different tournament organization servers for tier 4/tier 3. So I know who's on the blacklist, and it's not very surprising, unfortunately enough. Not a ton of you, just a couple of you, the obvious ones. So yeah, your actions do reflect onto League Zero, and if necessary, we might have to put some discipline in there, right? We don't like to punish people, but if it comes to that point where you're just being that much of a jerk to others in the Overwatch community, well, we're gonna have to take action against that, right? But we don't want that to be the highlight, so just be chill, and everything's gonna be fine, right? And then the last part is you will do your best to uphold competitive integrity to the league, right? Context really matters with this, but just in general, we are a community-based league, right? We want to make sure that the competition is as reasonable and realistic as possible. We don't want to do anything to tarnish that spirit of competition because that's a huge part of what this is. And that's pretty much it. Now, we do have 2 more small parts, right? So I have a very small closing speech, which will only take a few minutes, and then stay tuned till after the speech because we have something special for you all. So this is actually the one part that I did script, so I'll be looking down as opposed to directly to my camera so I don't screw it up too much. So that is pretty much all the basic information you need going into this tournament. Again, the team and player registration forms will go live shortly after this stream ends. We'll work on getting those out shortly after. The usual procedures still apply. You can reach out to ask questions and we'll do our best to answer. You know the deal by this point. However, I do want to share my appreciation for all of this. You see, about 3 months ago when I agreed to take over as commissioner, I wasn't even sure if League Zero would have a future. Just like Season 2, I was hungry for redemption for Season 4, but I wasn't sure if anyone else would be willing to step up and help me try again. We lost a lot of the old staff team, and most of those were longtime veterans. I'd be lying if I said there weren't a few times where things were looking grim. So I want to express my... I don't even have the words to describe it properly, but express my deepest gratitude for the current staff team. They've all sacrificed dozens of hours over the course of these past few months preparing for this tournament, and I absolutely would not have been able to get this off the ground if it weren't for them. And a similar sentiment goes out to all of you watching as well. I get that a lot of people were frustrated with how Season 4 went. To me, that's a sign that you all still cared enough to be outraged when we missed the mark, and that it might not be too late to get back on the right path. The spirit of League Zero has always been community-focused, and I think it's about time we get back towards that ideal. Now, we're not going to be perfect. I guarantee you we'll make mistakes. But if you're willing to talk to us, we'll listen. Despite whatever craziness is going on with Overwatch or Blizzard or the world in general, if we can create a place for people to escape from it all for a couple hours a week, then I think we've done all right. So for everyone who stuck it out with us, through the good times and the bad, thank you. It means a lot. But before I close it out, we have a gift for you. A gesture of goodwill. And if you ask me, a great way to celebrate the end of an era for League Zero. And what better way to move forward than to pay respects to one of the most historic teams to ever grace our community. To everyone in our giant, psychotic family, I am proud to present to you Flushed, Season 2, Season in Review. Enjoy.
When you think about what makes a good team, many key aspects come to mind, such as teamwork, communication, compositions, and leadership. Some teams excel at one of those aspects, while other teams excel at multiple. The team we are going to be talking about today had all of those things and more. This is the story about a team that was built for success, about a team that all came together with one common goal, and that was to become the most successful team in League Zero history. This is Flushed's Season in Review.
Dominant throughout the series, they are going to take the win and the championships here.
So they'll be able to regroup and get at least another engagement in, but as we see Flush pushing in, the bomb comes out from Cyberson, takes up 3, but Plato gets 4 with his Death Blossom.
And it does look like Flush should be taking first half here.
Yeah, good aggression right there, using both sides, both the dive and the point presence to perfection, getting some pressure, but also meaning point presence.
Flush preseason started with Red X being picked for manager, having been a captain in Season 0 and a staff member in Season 1. With a trustworthy manager being chosen, the next step in the process of building a dynasty was to select who the captain was going to be. And this was not an easy decision for Red X, as he considered both Bun and Zira for the role, who are both 2 incredible DPS players. He ended up going with Zira, a very recognizable projectile DPS that has been with League Zero since the start. Of course, Zira wasn't complete without his partner in crime, which is why Melon was brought into the team as the assistant manager. Going into the draft, Flush had some key draft picks in mind, such as Basilisk and Ultra, who are both known for their incredibly good comms in game. Unfortunately for Flush, those picks ended up being drafted by Newt before Flush could even get their hands on them. Despite this little setback, Flush were otherwise happy with their roster, having selected notable players such as Mythology, Gagbag, and Megagust. With the draft finished and a roster that seemed to be great from the start, Flush went into the beginning of the regular season being regarded as a top team in Advanced. Going into the regular season, Flush started off hot with 2 particularly free wins against the struggling Hanamura Hotshots, who had to play Klein on DPS due to Glacial being at the NYXL homestand, and Goats Only, which was a team that was destined for mediocrity. Everything seemed to be running smoothly for the Flush squad, but that was until week 3, which is where the drama started to happen. This was mainly surrounding the Easy Clap match itself, where Melon, who wanted to go to Easy Clap, decided it was in his best interest to hard throw the game against Easy Clap, leading to a swift 3-0 loss for Flush, despite the matchup between those 2 powerhouse teams being hyped up greatly. After this game, the trading window opened, which is when Flush began to make some moves. This was firstly done by acquiring Basilisk and Ultra from Newt in a trade that involved Flush sending Megagust and Mythology away. The following game against Newt did not go well for Flush, as lack of synergy and scrim time accounted for a hefty 0-3 loss. Shortly after this, both Client and Swift were picked up from Hanamura Hotshots, which would end up in being the best move Flush made all of the season, as they managed to get their hands on both the extremely talented and handsome off-tank Client, also known as Eden. Despite these good pickups and trades, multiple members of the team such as Rev, Genie, Melon, Gagbag, Matt, Bubbles, and Early Bird all left the team. Needing a hit scan replacement for Melon, Basilisk brought in Plato, his friend from his college Overwatch team. Although the team was left close to the bare minimum for a short period of time, they managed to establish a starting lineup that was gaining more and more confidence after each scrim. Around this time, Corey was picked up as their mental health coach, helping the players out when they were feeling tilted or down. They won the remaining match in the first half of the season, leaving them at a respectable 3-2 record going into the final weeks of the regular season. This is where things really began to click for Flush. They went on to stomp the first 4 games of the second half of the season 3-0, causing them to gain massive momentum for playoffs, while also being both feared and respected by all other teams in Advanced. The last match of the regular season was against Easy Clap, who were arguably the only team who had a chance to beat Flush at this point in time. Despite the match being very close at some points, Flush managed to take the win against Easy Clap 3-1. Although the team's domination in the second half, they were unable to secure the top seed in the playoffs, which meant they would have to play in the quarterfinals instead of getting an automatic bye for the semis. This was when Jepic was brought into the team as assistant manager, who had previously managed Hungzhou Bark for a short period of time. Redx credits Jepic for helping him organize and manage scrims when he was unable to, which was a huge aid for Flush going into the playoffs. And with the brink of playoffs on the horizon, Flush was looking to speedrun their way all throughout the playoffs into the finals, as they were now officially regarded as the best team in Advance, due to their stellar performance against Easy Clap in the final week of the regular season. Right before playoffs started was when Flush decided it was time to up their scrim regimen significantly. Well, at least after the quarterfinals, that is, as they were not exactly worried or fearful of their opponents in the quarterfinals. This thought proved to be right, as they were able to easily take down Goats Only 3-0, advancing them to the semifinals, where they would meet the Flock. This was when Flush realized it was time to hit the drawing board with compositions, introducing now famous comps such as Bitchfield and Bangarang, thanks to the help of Flawless's Plaque Game Thoughts. They unleashed these compositions with relative success against Flock in the semifinals and were able to secure the 3-0 victory against them. This meant that they would be facing off against Newt Newt in the League Zero Season 2 finals. And this was a surprise for Flush, as they were pretty sure they would be going against their rivals Easy Clap, who were unexpectedly taken down in the semifinals by Newt Newt. Once again, Flush went back to the thinking of new strats they could use to defeat their opponents, and this was the time that Basilisk thought of the composition known as the Hit Squad, which was a composition that focused on shutting down the star hit scan on Newt Newt, Jazza, as he was often flanking to try and get his kills. This comp worked greatly for Flush, as it not only caught Jazza off guard, but was also helpful for Zira, as he was able to play something other than Mei, a hero he was pretty bad at, I would say. With the assistance of the Hit Squad composition and the fact that Flush doubled their normal scrim routines, Flush was able to take down Newt Newt in the finals with relative ease, securing the championship with a clean 4-0 win. By the end of the season, Flush had cemented themselves as the best team League Zero has ever seen, and it was all thanks to the players coming together, forming a tight-knit bond, practicing new comps and meta day in and day out, and overall having the raw talent and individual skill needed to be champions. But this roster made their mark in League Zero, and will go down in the league's history books as the dominant team that was all assembled by a 12-year-old kid and an AFK manager.
Second try, but the self-destruct will find Cammy out in just a bit of an awkward position.
It looks like Blizz is the person to go down. Both DPS from Triple B out of the equation now.
They are a shoe toy for the opposing team. Just like the supports, it hasn't ended. Catatrix and Excellent once again.
Attack Visor doling out a lot of damage, but somebody's got to get on that point. Bulby has to use the jetpack jump just to be able to get it back into the objective.